Hi, it's CNT120. We are looking at our Chap6Lab. We're going to take one of our homeowner routers that we have in the lab room, get it all configured up to add wireless devices, and even add some security to this homeowner router, if you will. So first thing we do, get the router that I have out for you in the lab room and the power cord. You're going to carefully connect it up. You're going to do the power last, but carefully connect it up. You're going to take the patch cable from the back of your PC, unplug it, plug it into the internet port on the router. Once you have that connection is now going to act as the internet connection. You're going to get a new patch cable from the side lab room, a straight through patch cable. That's like the blue, black, or gray cables. You're going to take that now and plug it into the back of your PC and into one of the LAN ports on the router. Close that out a second. And then once you have that cabled up, you can boot it up. Now, if you're working as a pair, both of you can plug into the back of the router. Only one of you is going to be able to browse in and configure. So you might need to work in a little tag team fashion there on browsing in and configuring. I do have a lot of routers, so you might even be able to break out and do your own as well. Once you power it up, you'll need to let it boot. After it boots, I'm going to have you use one of our reset tools, a paper clip, and hold it in and reset the router. That way it clears off everything if there happen to be anything left behind, and it comes up in the default state. That's going to take a minute. Once it's done rebooting, the link light on top will stop blinking and it'll stay solid. Once we have that, now we can actually progress with looking at our IP and actually connecting into the router. So what I'll do now is mine actually got done rebooting. That's why the screen flashed up there on the side. It was trying to get me to log in, but I closed that. I ignored that. We're not going to use that right now. We're going to open our command prompt on our PC, and we're going to do an IP config, and we're going to do /release. We're going to release anything that my computer might have, and then we're going to turn around and we'll do a renew, ipconfig /renew. And that's actually going to ask the router, there's a little DHCP server built into that router. It's going to ask that for a new IP. Now, it very well might have stayed the same number, but we know we have an IP from the router now. And here is the actual IP address of the router, the gateway address. So we're now going to use that to browse into and configure this router and get it set up. And like I said, at this point, only one person can do this. So either take turns doing this, one of you maybe do one part and then, swap the mouse if you want and somebody else do the other part, or get another router and go ahead and do this on your own. So I'm going to get that IP address and I'm going to plug it into my browser and browse into this homeowner router. So I'm taking the 192.168.1.1. I'm going to open my browser. I'm going to open a new tab, 192.168.1.1, and I'm going to hit the enter key, and it's going to bring me to a setup page. What I actually want to do is I want to configure this manually. I don't want to use their setup tool. So I'll indicate I've read the license, but I want to set up and configure the router manually. So I'll go to the next page. It might actually fail out, and I might need to kind of go around and say I want to log in anyway, because it's going to try to check your account, internet connection, everything else. And it's like, well, we're still working on setting that up. So let it time out here if need be, and then we're going to pick the login page. It's like, hey, the internet connection is down. That's fine. We're going to do the login and do it ourselves. We're going to log into the router and configure this ourselves. So it should flash up another page here, and we're then going to use the name will be blank, and we'll use the password of admin to log in. So here's the password. There is no username, so we'll do the password of admin and log in. Let me make sure I type that right. Sign in, and now I'm not going to remember that. Now we're actually browsed into the router and we can actually set it up for our network the way we want it to. So this is kind of the initial login screen. Again, only one person on this router can do this at a time. Okay, so we're going to do some initial setup here, and then we'll work our way to the wireless part. So first part, under router settings, we will look at the connectivity options under the basic tab. So under the router settings, we want to look at the connectivity over here, and we want to see what sort of settings we do have on this guy. So let me try to get both of these almost side by side so it's a little easier to follow along. There we go. We want to look at the existing settings for wireless network, and we want to look at the time zone of this. So right now there is some default wireless connections here that we could use, but we're going to reconfigure that to the way we want it. Down here we see the time zone is Pacific, so we're going to change that to our Eastern time zone where we are, and we will apply that Eastern time zone. We will apply. Give it a second to apply. Sometimes you might even see router flash or whatever. So now we have, and this is where we could change the password, but we're going to leave it default for what we're doing. We'll say OK. Now that we have that set, let's look at the internet settings on this guy that we have. So internet settings tab, we want to go back to our connectivity, and we'll look at the internet settings tab right here. We're just going to work across these, and we'll see that this guy has a setting of DHCP, meaning it's going to get its IP address from the ISP. In this case, HAC is acting as our ISP. This is what your router home does. It's picking up an IP address from your Verizon, Comcast, whoever your ISP provider is. We'll see the domain name is hack.edu. Yep, that's fine. And this is where I could do a settings of MAC address clone if I needed to replace my router and put a MAC address in like I had for the old one. You know, I could do that here at this point. Let's look at the local network tab. Our local network, here's host name, here's IP address. This is the IP address on the inside with our subnet mask. We see that the DHCP server is enabled, and it's actually starting handing addresses out to 1.100, and we can have, 50 users, if you will. We could change this if we wanted to and have it hand out to a higher IP. I don't think I have notes there to do that, but we could do that. We could actually make that a higher IP address if we wanted to. And we're getting these settings and so forth from, well, actually these settings here for handing out for the clients are here, but we're getting DNS settings and so forth from our ISP. So let's look at the advanced routing tab that we have here. NAT is enabled, so therefore whatever the ISP gives us, it NATs us into this network scheme right here, which again I could change if I wanted to change how my IP addresses are handed out. But NAT is enabled, which is good. That's what we want to have happen. Let's look at the administration tab now. This is where I can have local management via access wireless. I could also enable HTTP, HTTPS, etc. Okay. Right now we're browsing in locally, and then we'll be able to manage wirelessly once we get this set up. So there's some of my basic settings on here. We're going to use the back arrow to go back to the main page, if you will, right here. Now let's start take a look at, my goodness, let's take a look at the wireless settings that are here, and we'll start to configure in some settings that we want to use. All right. So we'll look at the router settings, wireless section. Router settings, we'll go down here to wireless. So here's the wireless SSID for the 2.4 gigahertz band, the wireless SSID for the 5 gigahertz band. Well, let's make these into names that we want to use, as well as passwords and stuff we want to use. So let's configure the 2.4, and we'll want to use like your last name. If you're working as a pair, maybe one of you use your last name here for the 2.4 and the other one do your name for the 5 kind of thing. I'm going to do both of these the same because I'm the one that's working on it. But I want to use my name, CNT 2.4. That way I can find this SSD once we start getting these all configured in the lab room. So I'll do Brown dash 2.4. Actually, no, I do CNT dash 2.4, and I'll be able to find that SSID and notice my 2.4 gigahertz band. After that, I'm going to use the password of password 24. Not secure. Again, in real life, you'd want to be a little more secure. We're doing it kind of generic so we don't have connectivity issues. We're going to leave a lot of these settings alone. Broadcast the SSID, yes. Channel auto, yes. WPA2 personal, yes. Mixed network, and channel width auto, yes. Now, we could actually change these. If you had a bunch of neighbors around you and you were having issues with connectivity, a lot of you might be on the same channel, so you could adjust this to a different channel and try to get away from their network and their interference. I've had to do that before with routers I've had with neighbors. Everybody was around the 6 hertz, the channel 6, if you will, so I jumped down to channel 1 or channel 12, that kind of thing, and try to get away from them to avoid some of the interference that might be in an area. I'm then going to do pretty much the same settings for the 5 gigahertz band. We'll do Brown CNT-5. I'll do password here, password 5. Again, this is just for our learning purposes. Broadcast SSID, again, channel 8 auto, WAP2 personal, mixed, etc. Once I have all those set, again, if you're working by yourself, use your last name for both of these. But if you're working as a pair, maybe one of you use your name here, the other one use your name here. That we're both reflected in this config. So we're going to do apply, and it kind of says, hey, is this what you want here? And I'm double checking Brown-CNT 2.4, Brown-CNT 5, personal, there's my passwords, look good. I'll say yes. And it's going to apply them. And we're going to temporarily lose connection. That's fine. We'll let it lose connection and come back. So we're going to let that work for a minute. The next part, we're actually going to get a laptop out. You can either use your own or you can borrow one of our laptops in the lab room. We're going to get that out. We're going to try to log in, open the command prompt, ipconfig all, find the MAC address. We want to find that MAC address. Once we do that, we're going to add that MAC address to our router here. So while this is rebooting, I'm going to boot up I'm grabbing one of the laptops out of the cabinet. I'm going to boot that up. And again, you can use your own or you can use one of our laptops. And I'm going to retrieve that MAC address. So while that is booting, this looks like this is just about done here. Okay, I think right here we say, okay. So on my laptop, let me log in and I'm going to get the IP or the MAC address. Let me pause for a second. Alrighty, so on one of the lab room laptops, I pulled the command prompt up. I did an ipconfig/all, and I looked for the wireless LAN adapter, not the Ethernet, not the local LAN adapter. I looked for the wireless LAN adapter. You would want to do the same as well. And I found the MAC address and I just copied it here to this notepad file. 38-BA-F8-18-4E-A8. Now, I want to take that and I'm going to put it into my router, but the router wants the format of this right here. So I'm going to edit this right now. That way it should be good to go and I should hopefully be able to paste it right in. So that's the format that it's going to want. So I'm going to copy that. We're going to go back into our router settings wireless. Okay, router settings wireless. We're going to go to the tab that says MAC filtering. So there's all my settings from previously. MAC filtering. I want to enable MAC filtering and I'm going to plug in the MAC address of this PC. So we're going to say allow only what's on this list. So we're going to add a MAC address and I'm going to plug this right in here and I will say save. Now this laptop MAC address will be on the approved list. So anybody else that tries to connect will not be able to. So there it is. I'll say apply. I'll say okay. So that now should be in my list of approved devices to connect to this wireless network. Do the same, just carefully make sure you get the correct MAC address, change the format and apply it in. Okay. I have you do a test right now on this PC right here that I'm using. We're opening command prompt right here and we're going to do a trace to Google. Okay, and this is showing me going through my Linksys router that we're using right now, and it's going to slowly work its way out to Google. All right, now I don't really need the whole results here. I just want to make sure that we're actually getting out through and out to the internet, and we are. So that lets me know that when my wireless device connects, if it doesn't get out to the internet, then I know it's something on my wireless connection that I'm dealing with, whether it be the MAC address or the encryption password I'm using or something of that nature. Because this PC is connected into the router's getting out to the internet, I'm able to trace out. I'm going to stop the trace. I just need to go a couple steps to make sure I'm getting there. So that at least lets me know my router's configured up and running. Now we should be able to start adding wireless devices. So we're going to do that in the next step here, next podcast.